everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Justice League review series. And for those of you who remember, who were here last time, I was joined with my partner in crime, the one and only Geeker Beyond himself, Chris. But unfortunately, Chris will not be joining me for this latest edition of the Justice League review series due to the fact that Chris has moved house and is now living in a very different area and very far away from London. So sadly, he will not be joining me for providing the audio watch along commentary for this upcoming episode. But I'm dedicating this edition to my good buddy who I know really enjoyed this episode a lot. And I know this was one of his all time favourites, and it's one of mine as well. So, the episode that I'm going to be talking about for this latest edition of the Justice League review series is Hereafter Part 1 and 2. And it's been a while since I watched this episode, but from what I remember is this episode took a lot of inspiration from the death of Superman and a story arc from the 60s comics called Superman Under the Red Sun. And it pretty much, for this episode, combined both of those story arcs into one complete original story. And from what I remember of Hereafter, this was a very good episode and one that I enjoyed very much. And it's an interesting one because this episode led everyone to believe that Superman had died. But unfortunately, that wasn't quite as straightforward as that. But we'll get into that as we go along here. So, just like always, I am going to be providing a watch along audio commentary for this episode. So, I'm going to be watching this episode and talking about it at the same time. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about Justice League Hereafter Part 1 and 2. So, here we go. Do, 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 do. Love it. So, this episode opens up with a room with people dressed in robes reciting a quote. Now, we see here that the people in robes are Toyman, Livewire, Weather Wizard, who is a Flash villain, and Cullyback, and Metallo. So this is kind of taking inspiration from the graphic novel Superman Revenge Squad, where they all stick the knife in the Superman crest on the table. So we are essentially seeing some of Superman's villains all coming together for one purpose, to extract revenge on Superman. I don't really understand why Weather Wizard was in this squad because Weather Wizard technically is a Flash villain, and Weather Wizard appeared in an episode from Superman the animated series called Speed Demons, which featured the Flash. So I guess technically he was defeated by Superman, but I just don't really understand why he's there. But it's okay, I guess. I love this intro. You know, no matter how many times I see the Justice League intro, always sends chills down my back. It's just such a epic, majestic intro. I love that the shadow silhouette of all the team members. I think that's really cool. So here we have Maggie Sawyer and all of the Metropolis police force. So we see the Superman Revenge Squad on a rampage, doing what they do best. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen this. Oh, look at that. Toy Man. The big giant robot. Very retro. I never was a big fan of the Toy Man, but when he's written well, he can be a real diabolical villain. But yeah, Toyman was never one of my favourite Superman villains. And here comes my favourite Green Lantern of all time, John Stewart, in the house. Yeah. And here comes the man himself, Batman. It's kind of strange to see Batman operating in broad daylight. It's not very Batman like. So here's John Jones. Here comes the Flash. Ah, I knew it wouldn't stay sunny for long. I suppose when you've got a villain like Weather Wizard, you're bound to see some weather changes. There's Wonder Woman in the house as well. Yeah, this was quite a epic opener. Weather Wizard just got blasted with his own lightning. Yeah, pretty epic battle here. So we see Flash and Wonder Woman working in tandem to try and tie up Toyman. Then they take out Metallo as well. Yeah. I have to say, really, out of all the Revenge Squad members, Colorback's definitely the strongest, but at the same time, he's not really what you'd call the smartest. But then again, I suppose that's why Darkseid always disowns him, because he's not exactly what you call a bright chap, so to speak. Wow. Wow, Caliburn just pretty much owned Wonder Woman here. Pretty cool seeing Flash running at super speed while Weather Wizard is providing the storm, and then Batman just takes him out. And Batman's wow, shows you how strong it is to lift a brute like Colorback. Pretty amazing, if you ask me. And Batman's just like challenging him to have a pop at him. I like this line here. So why aren't you fighting back? I'm distracting you. And then we see Superman in the house. I like that. That's a pretty cool punch from Superman. He just pretty much slugs out Colorback. I remember the line Colorback says here, I just flattened Wonder Woman. You really think you can beat me? I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to stall you. Stall me? For what? And then Superman just comes in. For what it's worth, I don't think you could have taken Batman either. Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows, really? And then we see Toyman is pretty much using this device which makes things disappear. And we see Toyman is about to take out Wonder Woman. Superman flies in, takes the blast. Wow. And he's gone. Not to try and sound like South Park. And he's gone. It's kind of funny because everyone's all like, oh my god, Superman's gone. But technically, he didn't really die. He just disappeared. You know, a death is only a death if you see a body. And there's no body there. Oh, Wonder Woman. Never upset a goddess, especially if it's Diana. And Toyman's pretty much saying, what are you going to do to me? I'm going to punch a hole right in your head. Oh, wow. And Flash being, usually Flash is a goofball here. And Flash doing the right thing, saying we don't do that to our enemies. And Wonder Woman very tearfully says, "Speak for yourself." And Flash says, "No, I'm trying to speak for Superman." Pretty deep stuff here. So we see Snapper is reporting the death of Superman. Now, this scene here coming up, which is essentially the funeral for Superman, takes a lot of inspiration from the second graphic novel after the death of Superman called Funeral for a Friend. It's a beautiful graphic novel. It's just pretty much Superman's funeral and all of the DC universe mourning for their friend slash comrade. And I love how Hereafter takes inspiration from that. Obviously, they put their own spin on the story arc, but I thought the way they incorporated Superman's quote unquote funeral in this episode was very well done. And, seeing John Stewart wearing the long green trench coat and Diana wearing her Themyscirian attire really shows you how hard Superman's death has hit everyone. And we see Batman here holding a piece of Superman's cape, trying to figure out what exactly has happened to Superman. And Alfred's here, tells Batman, "It's time, sir." And Batman's like, "I'm not going." And Alfred's like, "Why?" "Because he's not dead. I've examined all of this in every way possible, and I found absolutely nothing. No body, nothing at all." And Alfred's pretty much saying, "That's very good, sir, but don't you think you should make an appearance at the funeral?" Batman says, "No, I've got work to do." So Batman's obviously not convinced that Superman's dead. But I like how, you know, in the DCAU, they've really done a good job in keeping Batman shrouded in mystery and kept him in the shadows, because in Funeral for a Friend, Batman went to Superman's funeral. But I like how in Hereafter, Batman doesn't go to the funeral. He does make an appearance, but he doesn't make a public appearance. So I like how he's just seeing the funeral in the shadows. I thought that was quite cool. So here is the service. We see all of the Green Lantern Corps. I'm guessing that's supposed to be Kyle Rayner. I don't think that's Hal Jordan. Would be cool if it was Hal Jordan. We see Tim Drake, Alfred, Orion, Aquaman, Mirror, Dr. Fate is there as well. The Kents, Kara, Lana Lang, and there's quite a lot of Lois Lane is there as well, of course. Oh my god, Lex Luthor's just walked in, and I like this, where Lois slaps Lex and says, "You happy now? You've been trying to kill him for years. This is what you've always wanted. I hate you. I hate you." And she starts crying, and Lex consoles her. And it's kind of interesting what Lex says here. "As much as I hate to say this, I'm going to miss him too." Wow. Kind of reminds me of The Man Who Killed Batman, where Joker thought Batman was dead and he had this little silly funeral for him. And even though the Joker's being the Joker, like, you could see that Batman's death really hurt him. When he said that line about, "Without Batman, crime has no punchline." So it kind of feels the same like that for Lex, because I don't think Lex really wanted to kill Superman. He probably would have done eventually, but the fact that he never got to kill Superman bothered him a lot. And, you know, the fact that he just wanted Superman out of Metropolis, and now that he's gone, it's like, oh, Well, there goes my fun. I've got nothing worth fighting for. Quite sad, really. So we get the funeral scene here. John Jones is providing the eulogy for Superman. I have to say, though, this was a very lovely scene. The way they incorporated aspects of the funeral for a friend was great. I do think some of the other Bat family members, like Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon, they should have been there as well. Even if it was just a non-speaking scene, I do think they should have been there. But yeah, this is a very powerful scene. I think really they should have had this for Superman Doomsday when they had his funeral. They should have used this scene and added it to that. I think that would have been quite good. So we see all the Justice League are carrying Superman's coffin, and Batman's looking on from the shadows. That's a really nice touch. And Wonder Woman gives a little smile. So it's good to know you're there, Bruce. That's quite nice. And this is a good scene as well. So they're all like sharing their memories and stories about Superman. And this is the first time they've actually talked about adding a new member. You know, Supergirl perhaps? Is she old enough? What about Aquaman? And we see Diana makes contact with Batman and pretty much says to him that we're thinking about expanding the Justice League. We're hoping you make your membership full time. And Batman says, I've got work to do. And then just puts the phone down. Apparently, I also read that originally the intended replacements for Superman for this episode was actually going to be Captain Marvel, who we now refer to as Shazam. But I don't think they could get the rights to use that character just yet, so they went with Lobo instead. So we see Lobo crashes the party in typical Lobo fashion and says, What's with all the long faces, Justice Dweebs? It's like a wake in here. Lighten up. The answer to all your problems has arrived. Since we're all going to be working together, you can call me Lobo. And he goes on to tell the Justice League that, Didn't Soups tell you once? I saved his life. And John Jones says, That's not quite what Superman tells us. And Lobo's like, Yeah, whatever. The main man happens to be the best bounty hunter in the known universe. You can ask Superman if you weren't busy pushing up daisies. And Wonder Woman pretty much gets in Lobo's face and says, You're no Superman. And Lobo very sarcastically says, The ladies say different. Lobo. He's such a cool badass of a character. And we see Wonder Woman just pretty much ready to rip Lobo's head off. And Lobo says, You want an audition? Come on, ladies. Let's dance. uh, I think Lobo, to me, is like the Lemmy Kilminster of the DCAU. Likes to drink, likes to party, doesn't care. That's what Lobo looks like to me. He just looks like Lemmy from Motorhead. So we see Batman's pretty much come to a dead end, and he's starting to come to the conclusion that maybe Superman really is gone. And then there's a very rare moment we see Batman essentially break character, so to speak. And he says, I've got some things to say. I should have said them when you were here. But despite our differences, I have nothing but respect for you. I hope you know that. You showed me justice doesn't always have to come from the darkness. I'll miss. And then you hear an explosion going off, and Batman says, What do you always call it, Clark? The never ending battle? So even though Batman is a dark and very driven and at times stubborn guy, you could clearly see that Batman really respects Superman a lot. Even though they may not always see eye to eye on things, he really respects him a lot, and it shows. So we see some more villains causing mayhem. We see Star Sapphire, Copperhead, Deadshot, Volcana. So you're pretty much seeing like a bit of everything. You're seeing some Green Lantern villains, some more Superman villains, and some Batman villains as well. So essentially, you're just seeing like DC villains, to put it mildly. And with Superman out of the picture, it's pretty much open season for all villains. Bear in mind, you've still got the Justice League around, and we see Batman blasting some missiles at Kalibak. So pretty much revisiting their little fights they had at the beginning of this episode. And it's kind of interesting that, Batman would essentially take on all of these villains by himself. I mean, he can more than hold his own, but it's just kind of, you know, badass that Batman would be willing to take on all of these villains by himself. And we see Batman take out Deadshot, and, we see Batman taking on Copperhead. Last time these two were this close, Copperhead almost took out Batman. So, these two are no strangers to one another. So, Batman's more than prepared for Copperhead this time. And we see Batman gets a little shocks of electricity from Livewire. So, this is more like an expanded version of the Superman Revenge Squad. And we see the Justice League going at it with Lobo, who thinks this is an audition to join the team. Yeah, Lobo was never really known for his intelligence, and nothing's changed much here. So we're seeing Lobo's motorcycle, or as he likes to call it, his hog, pretty much taking out the Justice League. And Dinah has really had enough of this guy, you can tell. And Flash is like flying around in the watchtower on Lobo's hog. Like, whoa! Ah, brilliant stuff here. So Lobo has pretty much made himself a member of the Justice League, much to the annoyance and anger of the rest of the team. And they see the news that all of the villains are pretty much going on a rampage. And yeah, looks like Lobo's part of the team. He's actually flying in the Javelin with the guys. Oh boy. John Jones has got no time for this guy whatsoever. Hawkgirl probably even less. And Wonder Woman, well, enough said really. So, oh look. Oh yeah, like Deadshot's really got a chance against Wonder Woman. Oh yeah, Volcana. She's a hot one. No pun intended. Star Sapphire ain't too bad on the eyes either. Nice. She was actually featured in quite a few episodes in the DCAU. I forgot about how much episodes she appeared in, so I think that's quite cool. And yeah, essentially got quite a lot of Superman villains in this shot here. Lobo taking out Kalibak. Wicked. Love it. Would have liked to have seen them trade some punches, but hey. Oh, look. Didn't quite finish the job there. Oh, God. Oh, we are going to get this. As I said, it's been a while since I've seen this one. He just basically thunderclapped Colorback with two cars. Batman putting out the fire in Volcana. Nice. He's Batman. What do you expect? He's prepared for everything. Uh, yeah, see? Flash electrocuted Livewire, and they've essentially stopped all the bad guys while Lobo's just being Lobo by taunting Colorback, and Lobo's pretty much saying, "Look, I'm here now. Superman's gone. Deal with it." And we come to what looks like the desert with a red sun, and there we see Superman laying there. Well, he's not dead, but he's just laying there unconscious. And that concludes Hereafter Part 1. Excellent episode. Really enjoyed this one a lot. And loved the way they incorporated elements of the death of Superman, funeral for a friend, you know, the old 60s comic, called Superman Under the Red Sun. It's good. Very good. Really enjoyed this episode a lot. So now that Hereafter Part 1 has concluded, we're now going to move on to Hereafter Part 2. So this should be just as good as Part 1. As I said, I haven't watched this in a while, but I remember it was very good. That's the most I remember. And this is essentially everyone thinking that Superman's dead, but it turns out he's not dead. Far from it. So this is pretty much a continuation of part 1. So with part 2 really. So here we are, picking up where we left off from the end of part 1. Superman has pretty much been teleported to another world with a red sun, and he's bleeding. He's got all like scratches and cuts on his hands. So yeah, this is essentially taking inspiration from Superman Under the Red Sun. Now, in that comic book, which I have, Superman is essentially in the middle of nowhere. He grows big long hair and this big beard, and he runs into Mxyzptlk, who's not actually a villain. He actually goes out of his way to help Superman, but instead of running into Mxyzptlk, he actually runs into Vandal Savage, which is quite interesting. And now what we're seeing in this episode is Superman pretty much with no powers, and he's got to fend for himself really. So he's in survival mode. So we're seeing him putting together bits and pieces he picks up at a junkyard, and essentially running his own car. Superman is so used to flying around everywhere that he's never really had to be practical. So seeing him resorting to these methods just to get some petrol and driving a car is quite a rare thing. So it's different because, Batman would always know what to do in those kind of situations, whereas Superman never had to know about being in those situations. So it's different. So I like it that we're seeing Superman resorting to these methods just to survive. So now we're seeing Superman with the black beard and the long hair. If only we had that look in the DCOU in the black suit. That would have been so epic. So Superman is essentially living in the cave with firewood and all alone. He's not quite alone now. He's greeted by what appears to be mutated hyenas. Reminds you of those mutated hyenas that radiated with gamma radiation from the Incredible Hulk animated series. So this is like the last man on Earth sort of moment. Superman, the only guy left, living in hiding just to survive, really. Oh my god. Flash light speed bars. Oh my god. Terrible stuff. So, Superman has carved himself a sword. Hmm, interesting. And now Superman's hair's even longer. They should have made Superman's costume darker, just to make it look more dirty. Yeah, Superman in survival mode. Essentially, got to do what he's got to do to survive, so to speak. And we're now seeing Superman driving, and normally we would see Superman in his Clark Kent persona driving a car. You would never ever see Superman driving, but Superman is essentially in the middle of nowhere and driving through the snow. And his costume, I know it's due to the night sky. The color of his costume looks like Bizarro's costume color scheme, so to speak. So Superman's come up against those mutated dogs. I think they're mutated dogs. And Superman's going to fight off these dogs with his custom made sword. Never ever thought I'd see the day. A powerless Superman fighting off a group of animals with a sword. This is the sort of thing you probably would have expected to see from maybe Batman or even Wonder Woman. But he's holding his own here, I'll give him that. Kind of reminds me, if you pause it at just the right moment when he's holding up the animals, he kind of looks like Kraven the Hunter from Spider-Man. Kind of reminds me of Kraven a little bit, fighting off all of the animals. This is actually quite a good scene. Powerless Superman fighting off all these mutated dogs. Ugh. He holds his own. I give him that. And Superman has now made these animals his own personal chariots, so to speak. So Superman's got red fur and a coat. I think it's a coat. It looks more like a ripped shirt. So he's really taken this last man on Earth thing quite seriously. So he doesn't even look like Superman anymore. He looks like a like a Robin Hood type of character. It's quite amazing, really. So we're seeing Superman with his own personal chariot of animals. And I think he's just trying to look for some way to get off this world. Really and truly, this part of the episode, I think this could have worked as part of the Superman animated series from the 90s. Feels more like Superman's story than Justice League story, in my opinion. Because we don't really see a lot of the Justice League in part two of Hereafter. This is mostly Superman, as I said earlier, in survival mode. So he's now found what looks like a nicer part of the world, if you want to call it nice. And this is like a jungle. I'm definitely getting Craven vibes here. Superman on the hunt in survival mode. And there's not really a lot going on here at the moment. And he comes across what looks like, or what used to be, the watchtower. Kind of looks like the watchtower a little bit. So, but again, as we all know, under the red sun, Superman's got no powers whatsoever. So he has entered what looks like the Javelin hangar. It's quite eerie, seeing an abandoned watchtower in the woods. So he's. Oh, so Aquaman did replace him after all. Because I know in part one, when they thought Superman was dead, they were talking about replacements for Superman. And there he is, Vandal Savage. So this is the first time that we've seen Vandal Savage since the Savage Time three-parter, which, by the way, was epic. Highly recommend you check me and Geek Beyond's audio commentary watch along for that. It was really good. The design for Vandal Savage in the DCAU reminds me a lot of General Zod. I think I even remember someone said to me once, "Oh, Zod appeared in the DCAU, did you know that?" And I said, "No, he never. I know Jaxa and Mallah did, but I don't remember General Zod appearing. I wouldn't have forget something like that." So, in this world, Superman isn't the only guy there. Vandal Savage is there, but it makes sense because Vandal Savage is practically immortal anyway. But I don't think this is the same Vandal Savage that the Justice League encountered back in the Savage Time three-part episode. I think this is a Vandal Savage who pretty much lives in peace. Look at him, he's even smiling. Just weird. So we've got a Superman with a long hair and beard, and we've got Vandal Savage with a beard as well. It's a beard thing. So this is pretty much the end of the world here, according to Vandal Savage. He's pretty much saying that this is the future. And there is what used to be Superman's monuments for when he supposedly died. So this is pretty much the future. This is where Superman has landed. He's pretty much landed in the future. Not exactly sure how many years ahead of the future, but I've always looked at this world that Superman's trapped in as like a possible future. This is not actually the future that we know of the DCOU. I think this is a possible future if one timeline went a different way. So far, Vandal Savage hasn't done anything horrible, which is good to know. But can he be trusted? Can Vandal Savage be trusted? Maybe this version, perhaps, but probably not the Vandal Savage we know. There's the red sun, and there looks like planet Saturn. That's it. Superman just gets to slug him out. Hold it, hold it. No, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Superman doesn't kill. Oh, you tricked him. He thought better of it. I guarantee you, if that was Lex Luthor, he would have not hesitated. Hungry? Yep. This is definitely not our Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage cooking for Superman? I can't even imagine Vandal Savage cooking for anyone, let alone Superman. So, Vandal Savage is the only guy in this world. He lives a reclusive lifestyle. Nobody else is on this planet, and he's cooking. Look at this. Well, he's no Jamie Oliver. Oh, dear, oh dear. You know something? This is like, imagine if Superman had dinner with Zod. Are you hungry, Kal-El? Maybe. Perhaps I should get you something to eat. Oh dear. Funny stuff. I don't blame Superman for having a big appetite. If you were stranded in the middle of nowhere, yeah, you would be hungry too. Even gives him the sofa to sleep on. Nice. Yeah. I think this is the part where I think Superman's trying to figure out a way to get off this world. And there is the same time portal, I believe, from Savage Time. This was essentially the same portal that the Justice League used when they were teleported to World War II. So I think Superman has figured out a way to essentially get back home, so to speak. I don't think it's been used for years, but Vandal Savage has got a big smile on his face. That's never a good sign. So now they're working together to get this thing running. I think this is definitely a possible future because, a lot of the stuff that's there, it doesn't look like the same. So I think this is, as I said earlier, a possible future that could go another way. So now we're seeing Superman and Savage on giant flying bugs. I'm telling you, the color scheme, I know it's because of the lighting, just makes Superman's costume look purple. So now it looks like Vandal Savage and Superman are working together. I wonder what's going to happen here. Ugh, nasty, nasty. It's one of those giant bugs. That was quite an army of bugs. Ugh. Horrible, horrible stuff. So now Superman and Vandal Savage have found a cave. Oh, lovely. More giant bugs. Oh boy. Now they're inside the cave, and yet there's more giant bugs. It's a bug thing. So, who do you think would win? The bugs or the guy with the sword and the gun? I know who my money's on. The guy with the sword and the gun. That's it. So now they're taking them all out. Ugh. Yuck. Nasty stuff. Nasty. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I like Superman and Savage's chances now. And now they've come to a glowing pit. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, too late. Superman fell in. Or did he? Ah, brilliant. So, the yellow sun. All right. Okay. So, that's how Superman gets his powers back. Well, at least for those few minutes. So now they've got that energy source to power up the time portal. Clever. Very clever. As I said earlier, I think this should have been. I know they weren't thinking about it back then, but I definitely think this should have been maybe an episode of Superman the Animated Series because this definitely feels more like Superman's story than a Justice League story. So Vandal Savage came through. He actually helped Superman. And he didn't turn on him. Well, there's a first. So Superman has essentially thanked him for his help. Cool. And they shake hands. And Superman, I think, is going back home. Yep. Surprised Vandal Savage didn't go with Superman. I thought he may have done. So now we're back to the present. Lobo is taunting Calabac, as only Lobo can. Hawkgirl's pretty much telling Lobo, that's not what we do here. And he's pretty much just rubbing it in their faces that, just face facts, Superman's not coming back. I'm in charge now. Oh, look. Deadshot. the man who never misses. And look who's here. Brilliant. Do, 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 do. Superman is back, baby. Yeah. Oh, Flash. He's getting all teary. I love it. I've got something in my eye. It's okay. We all feel the same. Wow. It's a great moment. Love it. I love what Diana says here. I like the beard. It suits you. And I like how the Justice League are saying, you weren't the only one who wasn't missed, my friend. He missed you too. Don't let him fool you. He was just as cut up as you were. And Batman being Batman is like, I never doubted he was dead for 1 second. And Lobo is like, oh, this is so cool. The whole family's back together, all 8 of us. And Superman's like, wrong again, Lobo. And Lobo pretty much gets on his hog and says, that's the last time I've helped you guys out. And don't ever call me again. And John Jones shouts out, we never asked. Brilliant stuff. Yeah, you could definitely see Superman, he's the man. All due respect to the Justice League, but Superman, he's the man. He is the leader of the Justice League. He really is. So we see Vandal Savage is still in that world, and he starts to see what used to be people. And it looks like the timeline has restored itself to normal, and Vandal Savage disappears. So he never really existed. So it definitely was a future, or a future. And that wraps up my audio commentary watch along for Hereafter, parts 1 and 2. Yep, this was definitely a lot of fun. This was really good. I really enjoyed this one a lot. It's a lot better than I expected. I do feel that maybe this could have been a Superman episode if the 90s cartoon was still a thing. But yeah, I really liked this one a lot. I really enjoyed this episode. I think part 2 was probably a little bit better than part 1, but there still was a lot of good stuff. But I loved how they incorporated elements of Death of Superman, Funeral for a Friend, Superman Under the Red Sun story arc. So they really came up with something new and original. And I liked it. I think it worked really well. But yeah, Hereafter, one of my favourites from the Justice League animated series. And pretty cool to see Superman with long hair and a beard. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What did you guys think of Hereafter parts 1 and 2? Did you enjoy it? Did you like the way they incorporated bits of Death of Superman, Funeral for a Friend, and Superman Under the Red Sun? What about where Superman ended up? Was that a possible future, or was that an alternative timeline? And what did you think of Vandal Savage's role in this episode? Did you think they did a good job with Vandal Savage? And also, do you think this could have worked more as a Superman episode instead of a Justice League episode? And what was your thoughts on Lobo's role in this episode? Did you enjoy it? Did you think he was a good choice to be with the Justice League as Superman's quote unquote replacement? Or would you have gone with someone else, maybe Aquaman or Captain Marvel or someone completely different who we haven't seen yet? And did you like the way they incorporated a lot of the classic DC villains? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Justice League review series, where I'm going to be talking about another favourite episode of mine from the show. This time I'll be talking about Twilight, which is one of the best Justice League episodes of all time. So make sure you don't miss that. and this is dedicated to my good buddy and partner in crime, Geeker Beyond himself, Chris. Hope you like it. Hope you enjoyed listening to me providing a audio commentary watch along for Hereafter, and I will see all of you next time. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.